absolutely delighted to welcome Liora Kern here. She is the Senior Director, Communications Expert, Marketing and Business Development Leader at ZN, which is the leading digital marketing company in Europe. You have over 20 years of experience in digital marketing, and you really are an expert at creating integrated digital solutions. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. If you need a clicker, we have a clicker here on the table. Do you need that one there?
I do need that.
So, yes, Liora, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you, Wouter. I couldn't have started better as a preparation of this keynote this morning. I know there was a lot of trouble for everyone getting here today. That's why in the Netherlands, which is where I'm from, this is how I prefer to travel, in a big bike, putting all the children, all the food in there. Just to give you a little bit of introduction, yes, I am from the Netherlands, which probably makes you think of the World Cups series on Friday, which I don't want to talk about. I prefer talking about how I commute, in case anyone's wondering, because I see some people like World Cup, because they're boycotting it. We lost in penalties like we always do. But let's not talk about this, as I said. So yes, this is how I commute in the Netherlands. I now live in Brussels to do a lot of digital advocacy for our clients. And I drive a hybrid because I find this way too dangerous in the city and we need to work on our bike paths. So why am I here? What is this experience? Yes, we have a lot of clients from a lot of corporates like Coca-Cola and UPS and Pfizer to a lot of associations like Digital Europe, FEFCO, and Vaccines Europe. So that's why I'm here, and I'm so happy that we're here together, all in the same room. We could even give each other a big group hug, and everything is back to normal, right? Everything's back to normal. So why am I even talking about digital today? Is that even necessary? Well, yes, all the commissioners, it's mandated. They are on Twitter. They are on social media channels. All the MEPs since the commission. Before, there were still a few that refused because they said, for our constituents, it's better if we're on Facebook. But now they're all on Twitter. And of course, there is this whole Mastodon story, which we can talk about in a second. But also, let's just talk about how we all use our devices. 8 hours per day we are on them. Minimum. It's so much. And we check our phones between 150 to 350 times a day. So yes, you might be enjoying having dinner with someone, but how often are you checking your phone at the same time? And what are you doing on that phone? Are you on social media? Just a question. And also, did you know that 75%, three-quarters of us are checking our phone? It's the first thing we do when we wake up or within the first 10 minutes. Bit shocking, and maybe we need to change those habits, but that's something that I say. Just to get a feel of the room, can you raise your hand the old-fashioned way if you are on Twitter? Yes, most of you on Twitter, because of course it's the channel for the EU bubble. Although with Elon Musk, are things changing? People are moving. The EU Commission has a Mastodon profile of already 50,000 followers, and things are changing. A lot of the EU influencers, I'll talk about that in a second, have opened Mastodon channels. A lot of journalists as well. Who is on LinkedIn? Everybody's on LinkedIn. You have to be on LinkedIn if you ever hope to get another job, right? What about Facebook? Everybody's still on Facebook too. What about Instagram? What a good audience. Everybody's on all the channels. Now, how about Mastodon? Who's on Mastodon? Yes, there is someone on Mastodon. Talk to her if you want to be one step ahead and you want to be open to change and new channels, because things always change in this sphere. What's your name? Ira. Talk to Ira during the break. She will have some good insights for you. How about TikTok? Wow, a lot of people on TikTok. Are you on TikTok because your children are on TikTok, or because you're... Yes, a lot of you are on TikTok because you shouldn't allow them. It's a Chinese... No, I didn't say that. So, interesting. Nice to meet you all. Right, so you are just the Times Magazine of the year, right? Every year they put a prominent person on the cover. The only exception was in 2007, because they recognized that with the internet, everything had changed. Everything. And all of a sudden, all of us had become a major playing in the information landscape. All of us had a enormous role. We can make things go viral. People trusted normal press less and less, and the journalists and also the people in that are ruling us, of course. Everyone is now a journalist. Everyone is a brand, and so you need to think about your association, your nonprofit, but you also need to think about yourself, because you can greatly amplify those messages, and you need to think about what it is that you want to say. So it's really those two on those two fronts that you need to work. So just a quick quote: digital marketing has revolutionized the way associations reach and engage their audiences, and it's time to embrace this change and use it to drive your organization's success. If you wonder where this quote comes from, have you heard about this new AI that is writing content? That's who wrote this, but it's so true. I asked them, what should I say? What's a good quote? And they came up with this, 100% true. It's completely revolutionized. Wouter shared that with us this morning. And are you doing it? Are you using it strategically? Are you doing this the right way? Or do you just have 2,000 followers and you're very proud of those followers, but you're just pushing out information? So
it's not the strongest of the species that survives, but the one most responsive to change. The world is changing, and it's being transformed by a new generation of communicators. The old communication model is broken, and for all those who don't want to become extinct, this video is for you. You need to understand, embrace, and connect with this new world with a new mindset. At ZN, we upgrade your team, your organization, and your story for the digital age. We love this new world. We shift, we link, we create, experiment, connect, design, play, hack, engage, share. To be one step ahead.
Yes, so that's the company ZN. And by the way, please tweet, please use the hashtag BIAF Forum, and tag me at Liora Kern or the company at ZN Consulting. Most people don't like it when you're on your phones during presentations. I would prefer, if you're not on your phone, to check business emails. But if you're there to tweet or LinkedIn or Mastodon, yeah, you could do it. That's not going to be many of you. Then please do it. Or Instagram stories work very well for events. And make sure to tag me so I know what you're thinking, right? So I love that. And we have to be honest about the fact that people are on their phones, and we should utilize that, especially in events as well. Give them a role. Give them something to do with their phones, because people are dying to say something, and they don't want to just do it at the end of a long keynote or of a long session. There's a panel discussion. They have so much to say. Give them that role and let them speak online, ask them questions and give them polls and give them things to engage with. But as Wouter said, I'm going to keep referring back to you because it's such a good prelude to this keynote. We're not ready for this. People are not ready for this. We saw this. When we started the company, or when Phil, you just saw him, our CEO, started the company in 1998, we said to our clients, you should probably get a website. And they were like, a website? Is that a thing? Really, we need a website? We were like, yes, we think it might be a good idea. Then when social media came about, we said, you should probably get a Twitter channel. People were like, Twitter? We have policy papers and we have meetings. We think that's enough. And so the mindset wasn't there. The mindset still isn't there. And so we developed a concept called, we'll get there in a second. So we said we need new tools, new skills, and a new mindset. And that mindset is called hyperthinking. It's already 10 years old, and we still need it. I'm so surprised. There's still organizations I meet, many associations, I have to be honest, that I meet, and they say, we're still not 100% sure if we need to do digital, we need to do social media, but can you design a policy paper for us? I say, yes, we can, but maybe we should talk about this a little bit more strategically. So that's why we developed this hyperthinking philosophy. We have a course on Udemy. It's for free at the moment. You can check it out. It's not very long. We have very good score, 4.4 out of 5, with very happy students, and also a book that Phil wrote, which you can purchase as well. This is not a commercial for the hyperthinking book, but it is just to say it's a very helpful philosophy, and it consists of 4 components. The first one is hyper shift. So that is very important. And that's, I think, also something that you mentioned, Wouter. It's about shifting perspective. Don't just think about, okay, what do I want to say? I'm just going to put that out there and hope someone engages with it. But what does an MEP need? You know, or what does someone need who's about to have a plenary discussion? What do they need to make the right decision? For example, put yourself in the shoes of your target audience. Challenge your own preconceptions, because to you it's so clear. You know, we work with the vaccine industry, and for many years, this was 15 years ago when we started working with them, we said, we are right. We don't need to communicate. We have the doctors on our side. We have science on our side. Well, we know where that led us, right, with all the fake news. And we said we need to create a platform. We need to create stories. And we need to also put out those messages. So don't just see things from your own point of view. That is hyper-shifting. Then hyper-learning. That is so important, because our society, our school systems, our universities, we don't educate people for the world of today. We're still doing things the old-fashioned way. My children have to memorize so much stuff. Is that really necessary? Is that really going to help them? Or should we teach a whole different way of learning, self-learning, every day, habits towards self-learning, making sure that every morning you read something, you study something, you listen to a podcast, you use all these opportunities, these immense opportunities that the web offer us. And creativity as well. Many people think, oh, you're either creative or you're not. That's a lie, that's a myth. You can learn creativity, and you can do this with mind maps, with thinking hats. We like to use design thinking. If you don't know it, Google it, you know, self-learning. So this is really something that you can really grow with. The third dimension is hyperlinking, and that's particularly relevant for associations and nonprofits. Associations have so many members, and if you were to use those strategically, your organic amplification would be enormous, right? But you're not using it, so you're pushing someone out, no one is sharing it. So why not, before an event, bring everyone together and talk about the event, talk about what you're planning to do, and say what you expect from different people, and ask them, you know, have these few pieces of content. They're really important. They hold our key messages. Can you all comment? We know on LinkedIn, if you have a piece of content and people have a lot of reactions within the first hour, that's when it gets boosted, when LinkedIn pushes it out. So why don't you make this happen? You can orchestrate this a little bit, especially when you have such big networks, as you all do. So that is very important. You all have your personal network and you have your organization's network, and you need to use the both. And then hyperacting. That's not attention deficit disorder, although it may sound like that. This is very much about embracing trial and error. I heard you say, I made a lot of mistakes. There are no mistakes. Mistakes are great. That's how we learn. We need to do A, B, C, D testing. We need to see what we're on. Everything changes. Whatever I'm telling you now will be different in 4 months from now. We were sharing all these facts about Twitter, and then everyone started hating Twitter because of the new leadership. So we need to constantly be ready, try it out yourself, sorry, I already forgot your name, I'm so bad with names. Like Ira did. She's going on Mastodon, and she said, let me check this out for myself. Let me see if this is right for my organization. That's what you need to do. You need to try it out, see how it's different. Don't be afraid that you need to pick a server. You just pick the EU policy one that Paul Nemitz created, EU influencer. He first announced it at the ZN event. So don't be afraid about that. Just try it out, see what's different. See that it's not so different. Yeah, you cannot use ads, but then you can talk about it with confidence because you've tried it yourself. So trial and error, very important part. I tweeted this morning, what are the most important skills for communicators today? Feel free to respond to it, to retweet it, engage with me. I just want to get a little bit of interaction going. Also, if you have any questions, just use my handle on Twitter at Liora Kern and get them to me, and I can answer them also in the next workshop that we have right after this, if I'm not mistaken. Hashtag BIAF forum. Keep saying this because that way maybe we get some traction on the hashtag, which is always good for the visibility of the event. Now let's talk about the secret of doing social media right, apart from the fact that you just need to do it. Good job. But that is, stop thinking about what you want to say and start thinking about what your audience needs and give it to them in their preferred formats on their preferred channels. So move from publication to conversation. That's the only way that you're going to have any impact. What we get asked a lot is, you know, can you create a viral video for us? Okay, so how do you make something go viral? Well, I have the answer to that. It's baby goats, of course, right? Why baby goats? Well, BuzzFeed wanted to surprise one of their managers with baby goats in their office. It was kind of a prank, and they announced the whole thing on Facebook. So there was a lot of anticipation, and this went viral. Everyone was commenting, sharing, liking, and they started thinking, this is quite a few years ago, there's a very good TED Talk about this, which I encourage you to watch. And they said, wow, this is very interesting. So they started pushing out all sorts of different pieces of content, and they thought, we need to think about what it is. Why do people share? Why do people share viral content, right? And so they did an analysis of everything that went viral in a certain period of time and came up with something called cultural cartography. And there's a very good TED Talk about it, which also explains the goats, by the way. And it puts in bubbles the reasons that people share. It's a lot of different things like, oh, this is so true, I need this, or this made me laugh. But in essence, it comes down to 5 different reasons people shared content that went viral. The first one, this is funny. Well, good one. Second one, it's so me. Need to share it, it's so me. Or this is us, I feel connection, very relevant for organizations such as yours. The fourth one, this helps me learn, but not in a dry way, remember, not long papers. And 5, it makes me feel something. And that's the most important thing, most important one. The feeds are endless. The information is endless. You need to have something that jumps out at you, right? You need to have something that makes the audience feel something. Now, in this respect, I'd like to share a video. You may have seen it because it really went viral, this story, about an organization that came up with a very original idea, and that without any paid advertising got amazing impact. Enjoy.
It's easy to miss the alcoholism of someone close. Our proximity prevents us from spotting the early signs of addiction. AddictAid, an organization specialized in alcohol addiction, wanted to highlight this difficulty. For that, we created an addict.
Louise Delage.
Louise Delage. Louise Delage.
Louise Delage.
On the 1st of August 2016, Louise Delage appeared on Instagram. Like with any other user, her life looked perfect and carefree. Her account gained a lot of organic followers by using growth-hacking actionable techniques, including trending thematic hashtags, key opinion leaders, and automated bots. In 7 weeks, her photos and videos had over 50,000 likes, but her followers missed the most important thing, until her last post. "24 hours after the reveal, hashtag Louise Delage became a trending topic in France. 2 weeks later, the campaign had been shared 500,000 times, and more than 110,000 people were following her account. Louise Delage was covered by media on every continent. With 0 media investment, it generated 1 billion media impressions for 9.8 million of earned media. But the most important result, the campaign raised awareness of our perception of alcoholism."
And the whole point about creating the social media campaign was an attempt to show how easily we can overlook signs of addiction.
So this is why, social media. The same thing goes for events. The next time you're planning an event or a conference, think about how can I make it shareable? What will people remember in 5 years from now? It's probably not the panel debate. It's probably not the keynote, but it is something that is different. As an example, we organize a yearly event, which is called EU Influencer, where we rank the top influencers in the EU bubble. Now, that's already smart because we do this, and of course, all these influencers are going to talk about ZN because they have been ranked. So that was a smart move on our part. So you need to also think strategically about who you want to engage with and how you can engage with them. But it also allowed us to build very personal relationships with them, and that we can have them speak on behalf of our clients or moderate certain events. But, you know, we do this year after year, and this year we decided we're going to do it in the room and make it a real, like, sort of cinematic experience with popcorn. So someone said they got like Eurovision vibes. We also did it online, as Wouter said. There's not everyone's going to be able to join online spaces in person. But we also did it in the metaverse because this is an interesting space. So when people came into the office, they could try it out with the goggles. There were people checking it out online. And so it gave a whole different dimension, a different part of the story. People found it very interesting. We had NFTs that we gave out. So it gave it a whole different dimension. So you also have to have different hooks, different backdrops that people can share so that you have a much higher chance. And this is a trending event every year on Twitter. Another thing that you can do is if you are in a space that's controversial and people are always tweeting against you or coming out in a way that you don't like, instead of organizing another panel debate, which you can do, and there's a lot to say for it, you can also bring them to your space. So for example, for pesticides, we brought people out to farmers who explained, why are we using pesticides? Why do we need them? We lose a lot of our crops if we don't. So you bring them to the farmers, you bring them to and it's very different. And we saw people that were quite negative. I mean, you should never bring people that are completely against you and are haters, because that's not going to be a very pretty sight. But people are on the fence. Those are very good people to bring over and hear the whole story in a very different environment. And so we do that, and we call that influencer days for journalists, and people are just very active on the topic online. So think about that as well when you organize your next engagement. Now, I've said a lot of things, and it might feel a little bit chaotic, but there is a method to the madness, and that is our process. It's 5 different steps. We always start with research and strategy, then we move to identity, which is all about the creative, the story, the messages, and the way it looks and feels, the development of the channels, and the selection of them as well, be it Mastodon or something else. Learning, and that's where you bring everyone together, you turn people into social media ambassadors, and then the activation, when you push the buttons for the events, for the advertising that you often need to make sure that people see your content, and for truly social content. So when you create a strategy, this seems very obvious, but it's often overlooked. People come to us and say, can you do this? And can you create a video? And say, okay, what is the strategy for this video? How are you going to make sure people see it? So you need to think things through. And what is most important is that you establish what your goals are and what your KPIs are. Because the great thing and the great difference with digital is that you can measure everything, but you can only measure success if you know what success looks like. So you really need to define the KPIs at the start of the program, at the start of your campaign or communication or event, and then measure throughout, and especially, of course, at the end. Then you need to build your digital ecosystem. And what is very important is that when you create content, you develop a persona. You picture a real person, and you put that into a little bit of a schematic. So if one of your target audience is an MEP, then give them a name. Say, this is John from the EPP group. He really dislikes this, and he's really interested in this, and these are his troubles in life. And then your second persona could be a member, and the third could be the general audience. But you're not communicating towards the general audience, but you're communicating to Francis, and you're communicating to John, and then when you create the content and you put those people on your desk, it's going to really transform the way that you create that content. Then you have to listen. Before you do anything, listen. What is happening? What are people saying? What are they concerned about? Because what we see a lot is that a lot of organizations are just pushing out their messages, but they're not. So for example, we worked a lot with the EPP group for 8 years, and we did a very interesting initiative for Manfred Weber, the EU Discover EU, and we saw that even though a lot of clients were interested in that, they were not proactively going out and saying, oh, this is a good initiative, and that can really mean a lot to an MEP, to a commissioner. So don't just expect people to come to you. First go to them, listen, and then engage with them proactively. To do this, you could set up Google Alerts about your topics, the Digital Service Act, for example, and create a Twitter list with everyone that's important to you, so that in the morning, instead of being driven by the algorithm that are on those social media, not on Mastodon, but the other social media, that you can then see, okay, what is happening with the people that I'm particularly interested in? And you can engage, you can respond, and you can retweet, which they really appreciate, no matter what level. Then you go to digital identity, which is all about creating that story, that name, that red thread, that fil rouge, pardon my French, to make sure that you can sustain a consistent story throughout. And of course, you have to have strong branding. For Crop Life Europe, European Crop Protection, they were called before. We did this with the With or Without campaign. It was a very successful campaign that we did an Ipsos survey year after year, and the perception of the industry, of the association, went up. And it was very much about, okay, how can we show what I told you before, that it's about the loss of crops if you don't use pesticides. Nobody is interested in just using pesticides, but there is a reason they use them. And why not visualize that in a very unexpected way, with a tree that's cut, or a plate that's cut? That's just going to jump out on you. That's going to ask questions. That's going to make you ask questions. And that's exactly what you want with your social media. Then, of course, you need to have a message house with the umbrella statement, the sub-messages, and all the proof points, so that your social media team or agency, because I know often there's a very small team in-house, can really write content that's based on facts, but it's not only about facts. More about that just in a second. Then you need to develop all the channels, you need to train all your team, and then you need to create truly great content. Now, how do you do that? One thing that is really helpful is Gary Vee's content model. Who knows Gary Vee? If you don't know Gary Vee, and I guess that's most of you, Google him. Again, self-learning. You can learn a lot from him. He also has a podcast, which I really like, about all sorts of different topics. He's a guru when it comes to social media. Now, Gary Vee, this is already a while back, showcased this model that I'm showcasing here by creating one large video and then turning it into 35 pieces of content. So you have a large video, which we all do, or an event, which is so much content, and then you split it up in reels if you have Instagram, or in snippets for your different social media channels, in a LinkedIn post. So instead of feeling the constant pressure to recreate, you can create that long policy paper, but don't expect anyone to read that policy paper unless you find a way for them to get there. You start with a very strong quote, then you get them to maybe an infographic, and then you bring them. So you need to lead people there. And there's so much you can do with just one single piece of content. We do a show, ZN Live, every Friday, and there we have a 20-minute conversation with an interesting guest, but then we take out the most interesting quotes and put those out, and also on LinkedIn, and those often are the ones that get the most traction. Now, people remember stories, not facts. At the beginning of this conversation, I told you a lot of things about myself. You probably don't remember exactly which clients we have, or how many years of experience I have, because all of those things are boring facts. But I bet you remember what my preferred mode of transportation was. Anyone? A big bike, exactly. And why do you remember this? Because it was a story, and because it was visual, right? So that's key to remember. You have all these facts that you want to share, but you need to think about how you want to share them, and you need to tell them in a visual way. So for Jean-Claude Juncker, we did an election campaign in the run-up to the presidential elections, and we created a video. He had this perception, there was this perception around him, actually Barely Monster tweeted about this, that he didn't tweet himself, that he knew nothing about social media. which was kind of true. And we said, let's embrace this and let's create a video that showcases that he writes with a kill and that someone else turns that into a tweet. That got a lot of traction. It got over 1 million views and really changed the dynamics around that conversation. It got only good feedback. Another thing you should do is use trending events for your campaign in a clever way, and also play with different formats. Now, in the previous World Cup, we wanted to do a campaign around dengue fever for one of our clients, a global campaign. And we really thought, we thought from football fever to dengue fever. It's kind of a nice link. And why don't we give a red card to dengue? This was something that a lot of, even soccer players, football players, a lot of people around the world felt really passionate about. And it was a very successful campaign that was then awarded with a Shorty Award, which kind of our equivalent of an Oscar in social media words. But it was a very fun campaign. So think about those clever links that also, again, make you jump out on the feed. So a couple of things. What works well on social? You as a person, you as an organization, you need to find a voice, something different, something unique, but also something that is very much in favor of, is very much true to who you are and you feel comfortable with. You need to not be afraid to take a stand. If you're too bland, it's not going to work. You need to inspire, educate, and entertain. Start a conversation. If you cannot join a conversation, anyway, join a conversation. That's very good. And be polite, say thanks. Old manners still apply on social media. Share what you care about. What should you not do? Don't just push out messages, just broadcast, just share without listening. Well, what we see a lot is that you post something, people respond, and you either don't like it or you don't even see it, and you don't respond to those responses. That's really bad practice. Always try to engage. Try to avoid having long negative discussions, but you can always say, well, thank you so much, I sent you a DM. You should never leave a question unanswered on your feed. Avoid, as Wouter said, jargon and technical and dry language, because even a policymaker is still a person, and if you cannot say it in simple words, if you cannot explain it clearly, it's not going to get through. You need to get them to the more detailed language, but on social media, that just doesn't work. And be visual. Don't use trending hashtags just for attention. So, in other words, I am confident that you got this. You're on all the social media except for Mastodon, and so you are very much active already. So the most important thing is to make digital an integrated part of your strategy, to embrace change, to hyperthink, to tell stories, to do it in a visual way, to listen and offer value, and to create those shareable experiences. And then remember, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And enjoy the journey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.